Welcome to Power CEOs, the truth behind the business. I'm Jen Gaudet, your fearless host, entrepreneur, investor, and business strategist. Why are we here? Because iron sharpens iron. And when we bring successful entrepreneurs and investors, industry leaders to share what's working in business and maybe even some of what's not, we are all able to learn and grow. The ripple effect impacts not only ourselves, our teams, and their families, but also our communities and our world. You're in for a treat today. I have a really special guest, Allison Maslin, CEO and founder of Pinnacle Global Network. This is a powerhouse. She authored the bestseller Scale or Fail. She's built 10 successful businesses, and she works with founders to truly scale and exit. Welcome to the show, Allison.
Oh, Jen, I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're gonna go into all kinds of things, but I want to start with a topic that's been discussed a bit on this show from the financial standpoint, from the marketing standpoint. But one of the things that you really have nailed and helped so many companies with is building strong teams. And in order for us to exit a business and maximize our greatest asset, that is our business, we have to have those strong teams that are going to continue to move on so we can have that better valuation. So talk to me a little bit about the importance of teams and driving company growth and why CEOs really need to focus on building that leadership team that can execute the vision.
Yeah, it's such a great topic. And I absolutely love building teams. I know for some people, it's not their favorite thing. But when you have a team that's around you that is so into the vision and they are so committed to making that vision happen, it's electric. And so it's the journey to getting to that place that people struggle with most. And I think, when we want to scale our business, we always think that, or often think that we have to come up with all the answers. And we're just trying so hard to figure out the solution, almost beating our heads against the wall. But you really don't have to come up with all the answers. If you surround yourself with great leaders and their genius is that specific area of your company, whether it's marketing or sales or operations, and then you bring all this genius to the table. So instead of you just carrying that vision forward, now you have the centrifugal force, this flywheel, if you will, that is moving that vision forward so much faster and easier.
So let's dive into that a little bit, because finding the right teams is a challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs and founders. And it's some of the things that I see, and I know you are very well experienced in this as well, is that we hire the leadership for the business that we have today instead of hiring the leaders for the business we're growing to tomorrow. And so we find that we bring people on and they max out when we do it the first way. Talk to me a little bit about how CEOs and founders can kind of shed the way they've been doing things so they can step into that. I'm going to hire people smarter than me that are going to get me where I'm going. How do we make that paradigm shift?
I have a saying I always say is make decisions from where you're going, not from where you're at. Because if you have a big vision to realize, and it's so much further from where you are now, you're not going to be able to come up with the answers necessarily with where you are at this position. Because everything that you look at that's right in front of you, your financial situation, the type of customers you have, maybe the revenue streams that you have, are not going to be at the level where you are going to be 5 years from now. And so if you can start to attract people, and I can talk about that a little bit, Jen, how to attract those people. But when you start attracting people that have already scaled up a company before, or they bring such ingenuity or such passion, that is at a higher level, of course it's going to lift everybody up. But if everyone is so mired in the how are we going to do this now? And why isn't this working? You're just going to keep spinning out.
Absolutely. So let's dive into that. But before we do, The other thing that happens when we're looking at this is we make a decision, and maybe we made a decision that was great at the time, and we have to exit someone else to usher in the new. And that's a hard thing for us to do most of the time. And a lot of times what I find is we do it, we hang on too long. We don't make that change soon enough. So talk to me a little bit about attracting the right people, but how do I exit out who I've already got, who's gotten us to this level and has the loyalty, but they just don't have the chops to get to the next level. Talk to us about that transition, because it really is. It's about attracting the right team, but it's also about who we have might not need to be on the bus anymore or might need to be in a different seat.
Yeah, it's just as important that we have those people transition on to their next chapter in their life. You can't go to the Super Bowl with B players or C players. They have to all be A players. And so it's hard because we care about these people, and these may be amazing people. They have devoted so much. They have really contributed to where you are, but they, like you said, they just they don't have that ability. Maybe they don't have the leadership. Maybe they don't have the skills that are going to take you there. And it's going to end up taking so much longer and be way more painful, but not just for you. It's going to be more painful for them. Mm-hmm. And so when they are feeling like they're not meeting your expectations, it doesn't make them feel good anyway. Let them do things that are the right fit for them in that next chapter, and let those people go. And then, what happens is that all of a sudden, when you do that, there is open, energetic space in your company. You'll start to see things move. I'm sure you've experienced that, Jen. And then, when you lead, so this is really the trick about attracting high-level people. If you're just leading with the skills set needed or what the job entails, there's 1,000 other positions out there like that. Now you are in the pool of everybody else. But if you are leading with your culture, like when you post an ad, for instance, or you're out there talking to people about the position, talk about the culture of the company, talk about the vision, talk about the mission, what you stand for, what you're passionate about. And when people hear that, they're going to be way more attracted. I hear people say, oh, it's so hard to find good people. And I really disagree with that. There's billions of people out there. There are the right matches. It's just that they're looking for a place to call home. They're going to spend more time with you, most likely, than the people that they're living with, their family. And so they want a place that they vibe with, that they can get behind, that they're excited and passionate about. So lead with that.
I couldn't agree more. And it goes so much further than what it used to be. It means that they have to be able to research us when we're putting that ad out. They need to be able to go to social and see that we're not just putting on an act. They need to be able to see that vision, feel that culture through everything else they see on brand with who we are for the executives. Can you speak a little bit to that? Because I work a lot in this space as well. And one of the things that I run into is very amazing leaders who just don't want to put themselves out there on social media, or they don't want to build that personal brand. But it's so incredibly important in today's world, especially with the younger talent. They want to know who you are as a human being as well as what your company culture is. Can you speak a little bit to that piece of it? Because I think that when we're branded, when people understand who we are and what we stand for, and they can see that very easily in everything that we do, it makes the hire or the attraction easier.
1,000%. We mentor CEOs all over the world to grow and scale. And they have, engineering companies, recruiting companies, grandma's noodles. The gamut is, across the board. And a lot of them initially do struggle with that. Like, I just want to lead with the business, but we are living at a time where people want to connect with people. Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, here she built a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, but it was also her brand that people really connected to. Now she's launched a new sneakers that have heels. I've got to get myself a pair. But you can just see her passion for this company. You know it's going to be successful. Or Richard Branson, my goodness, one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time. You know he truly cares about all of these different causes that he gets behind. And so you want to support his companies even more. And so I couldn't agree more. And I think people are just uncomfortable or a little shy to get on the camera. And I was definitely like that early on. And I think the shift for that is just be yourself. You make mistakes, good, because people are going to be able to relate to you more that way.
Absolutely. You are so on point. We do have to take a brief break, but I just want to kind of summarize for everybody who's watching. You were getting pure gold. We started with how do we approach teams? How do we exit the person who's maybe not going to get our business to the next level because we've maxed them out or it's not still in alignment. And then we finished with how important it is for us as executives, as entrepreneurs, to get out there and let people know who we are as human beings as well, because that gets that buy-in of our next level talent. Yeah, the skills and everything is great, but it's what is our vision? What is our mission? What do we stand for? And how do we really engage with those next level team members? We will be right back to dive deeper into this after these messages. Welcome back to Power CEOs, the truth behind the business. If you're just tuning in, we have pure gold today. I am here with Allison Maslin, founder and CEO of Pinnacle Global Network. We have talked about how important it is to build a team, how to maybe exit out some of the people that were working with us. Maybe they started with us and we've capped out their growth and we need to find something new, find their next chapter as we continue to scale. And we finished before the break talking about the importance of personal branding and how we have to get out there, no matter how discomfortable it is. We have to be putting ourselves out there so people can get to know us as humans, as we are founders, as we are growing our team, so we attract that next level talent. They want to know who we are and what we stand for. And it doesn't matter how uncomfortable it is. All of us go through it. I don't like being on camera. Guess what? I'm here. Why? Because it's important to interview people and to get this message out to each and every one of you. It's never comfortable for me, but you know what? I make mistakes. I keep going. It's so much better to just get started. Start letting people see who you are as a founder, as an executive. And so, Allison, I'm going to dive right in because we were talking before the break, and I know you do this with so many companies. Talk to me about the nitty gritty. What are the steps involved in transitioning from a founder-led company, scaling through a team-managed company so that we can really maximize our assets, scale our business, and exit?
Yeah, thank you, Jen. And it really is a journey. And you think about just the natural evolution as we evolve from infant to toddler to preteen, teenage, and so on. We're most likely going to get through those phases as a human being, but a business doesn't always work that way. Even though there are natural phases, a lot of times business owners just get stuck and they can't get beyond it. So I'm going to take you quickly through these 5 phases, and you can sort of think about where you are as a business owner right now and what phase you're in. So having that awareness, then you can make the moves to move beyond that. And this is what we help our clients do at Pinnacle Global Network. The goal is to get to phase 5. So in phase 1, you're the seeker, you're passionate, you're putting your business out into the world, you're doing everything, or you and a partner, there's no scaling happening here. Then you will naturally, hopefully, move into phase 2. This is where you get a few employees, maybe an assistant, maybe a marketing person. Hopefully, you're not doing your own bookkeeping at this point. You're at about 500K in revenue when you start hitting this place, and we call it the pioneer because you're out in the thick of your business. You're getting your hands dirty, you're optimizing your products, your services, you're getting more clear on your avatar. But what keeps people stuck here is that you still feel the need to approve everything going in and out of your company. Even though you have a small team, you feel like, oh my gosh, if I'm not checking this, then it could all fall apart. And you think you're helping the growth, but you're actually choking the growth of your company. And so to evolve to phase 3, what happens is you start to bring more people on, and now you're growing. You're not just a few employees. Now you're starting to build teams. You might have a marketing team, a sales team, a customer service team, maybe a finance team, whatever type of business that you have. And we call phase 3 the ringleader because it's a little bit of like a circus in phase 3. And kind of like those ugly teenage years that we all go through that are so awkward, you'd like to skip them, but you just can't because it is part of the natural evolution. And the biggest mistake that happens here is that we start bringing on people because we're running out of bandwidth, but we do this before we know what success looks like for the role. And I mean crystal clear. Like when you bring on this team member, what are the metrics? What are they reaching for? What is it that you want them to bring to your bottom line? And if you don't know, they don't know, you have mismatched expectations, and that's where the frustration is. You feel like you got to jump in because things are slipping through the cracks, and there you are on that hamster wheel. And Jen, this is where people get stuck for decades. And you're in phase 3 when you're up at night late talking to your significant other or your mother, and you're complaining about XYZ employee over and over and over again because you keep jumping in to save the day. So how do we move to phase 4? Phase 4, we call the co-creator. And this is where you shift from being a boss, micromanaging, telling everyone what to do, to being a leader and empowering people into action, empowering them to step up in their own leadership. It's where you start to see those leaders shine, and they start asking those important questions like, how do we increase profits? How do we build a better customer experience? Or you start bringing in those leaders, like you said earlier, that have already scaled up a company. And so you start having this culture of collaboration. It's no longer a top down, but it's a horizontal company, and you can start to slowly step back because your vision and your values are so entrenched in the company. It starts to get really fun, and then you're building that team managed company. Then you get to phase 5, which we call the visionary CEO, and this is where you want to be because you have choices. Now you have a business that's running, that's not dependent on you. This is how I'm able to live in Zihuatanejo, Mexico, several months of the year. And my team has really got it handled. And this is what we help our clients do. Instead of having a business that's running you, you want a business that you can focus on the future. This is what Jeff Bezos did to scale up Amazon. It wasn't focused on today. That's what the team does. And then you have choices. Your valuation goes way up because the company is not dependent on you. It's not just EBITDA. That is important. But I don't want to buy your company if I know the day you leave, everything's going to tank.
Yep.
And so then you have choices. You can bring in another CEO, you can sell it, you can pass it down. But that is the journey to build that team empowered
And
enterprise.
I love that you kind of lay this out because there's real sticking points. And I buy businesses. And the first thing I look at is, is it a solid business? Is it profitable? Like, does it meet my, financial metrics? Because if it doesn't meet my financial metrics, then I'm not going to buy it because I'm not here to run it. Like, I want to buy something that's a well-oiled machine. And then the next thing that I look at is how important is the founder, the CEO, or the executive team? Like, how important is that founder to the business or the current owner? And if the answer is I have to like step in and have a job, then I walk away. So you're so right. There's a lot of people who are okay with that in a strategic exit, but you're not going to get the same value as if somebody can just buy it and then, be a chairman of the board, if you will, and know that the team's going to run it. So thank you for that. And I want to go to the teenage years, because that's where almost everybody gets stuck there. And it's really hard to trust. It's really hard to step back and trust.
Yes.
Sometimes it's our own ego getting in the way. Sometimes it's because we've been doing it and this is what's gotten us there. And sometimes it's because we've been burned when we've tried to move to stage 4. So talk to me about, let's talk to the people out there who they've tried to entrust and empower people to take this over and gotten burned. How do we trust again? Like, how do we learn from that and actually blow through that fear? It's a fear-based
Yes.
sort of experience.
It's scary. It is probably the scariest thing you will ever do, is to totally let go. I mean, even for myself, and even to this day, sometimes I have to really catch myself in meetings and so forth to just shut up, and really step back, or just not even be there. But it really is all to do with leadership. If you feel like that your team can't get it right without you, it is because you're always giving the answers. So when people are asking you questions, and sometimes you can feel like, oh, I have such decision fatigue because I just have to answer question after question. Stop answering the questions. And instead say things like, well, what would you do in this situation? How would you handle it? Or come up with 3 ideas and pick the best one, or put a plan together for the team. And you start to empower the team to think for themselves. Like we recently brought somebody on that was helping us find different conferences to get involved with. And, I was kind of directing her on some things. And I said, you know what, just use your common sense. And for her, that was like, oh yeah, like what kinds of things do you want to know? You think that's important? And so, because otherwise there's a part of the brain that literally shuts off, and they become dependent on you giving the answer. It's not intentional, but that's what happens. You create that hamster wheel. You create that dependence. So you've got to shift to start empowering them to step up and come up with the answers, even if the answers are different than what you would give. You've got to learn to be open-minded around that. And then you'll start to see, you're like, wow, I didn't realize that, John was so good at that thing.
Yeah.
And, that's really where the magic happens. So it's really all in how we are leading. And then, it's not that they won't make mistakes, as you know.
Well, and
But
it really is. We have to give them space to make mistakes, because they can't step up. They're going to make mistakes. And one of the biggest things, because right now we're in an AI evolution of our business.
Yes.
And, a lot of people think of AI as SaaS, as software, but really, if you're implementing AI in a strategic way, you have to look at it almost like a hire. So it's a different form of letting go. So we're being faced with it on the tech standpoint as well as on the people standpoint, and leading through it. And you're so right. We have to give that space for them to figure it out. And I'm going to just say this to everybody watching, like, if you're sitting there and you're going, yeah, that's a little hard, I'm too accessible. Yes, you're too accessible. Maybe when you get those questions, don't answer and wait till the next day. It might surprise you how quickly they make decisions, and you don't even have to step in, because they have to figure it out to keep doing their job functions. So there's so much gold that you just shared. We do have to take another break. We will be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Power CEOs, Truth Behind the Business. I'm super excited to have our AI segment of the day here with our resident expert in all things AI and fellow television host here on Now Media Network. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Alan Bedell.
Hi, Jen. It's great to be here.
So I'm going to just dive right in. We have already talked about AI, what is it? Why do I need it? Where is it going? What is the business landscape? We talked about what do I need to be prepared for from a data and an infrastructure standpoint prior to an integration. Now I want to say, listen, we figured out our business strategy. We know that we want to have, how do we choose the right AI tool and platform for our specific business use case? Talk to me a little bit about how do we align the AI tools and platforms with what we're seeing from a strategy standpoint?
Yeah, and that's a very important, aspect of the business that oftentimes we forget about. It's so easy just to pick a tool. Everybody says, "Oh, I'm gonna, I need to, let my folks, just write papers or technical papers. So of course we're going to use Word. We're not going to use some of those other tools that are out there." It doesn't work that way for AI. One, as I always say, there's no easy button, and two, not every AI, well, actually, no AI will be able to meet everybody's needs. And so you have to do your same processes that you use for any other piece of software, except this time you've got to go a couple layers deeper. You've got to go through your requirements planning first. What do you want the AI to do? How do you want it to interact with your users? How do you want them to use it? How do you want your team to use it? How do you want to get the results, and how are you going to track that? That's going to be the first piece that you have to go through. Then, what technology space is it going to work with? We're used to, I've got seven monitors right now that are up, and I'm using multiple tools together with various AI tools. So what's that experience look like for your users and your customers, and what other tools do you want it to interact with? Because you've got to understand that when AI starts interacting with some of these other tools, there can be some ramifications that come along with that, such as, oh, I didn't want my IP out on the internet just because the AI got a hold of it and decided it was going to go search some things and put it in some different criteria. So you've got to look at it from that aspect as well. Really around the cyber piece and being prepared for that. And then the last piece is, how are you going to gather metrics as you're going through a pilot for your tool set? You cannot just start with one product, especially AI, because in some cases, like ChatGPT or, some of those other large language models that are out there, they will give you very good answers when it comes to certain aspects of a business. But they will not give you every single answer, and oftentimes they could be wrong if you're using it the wrong way. So you've got to make sure that your requirements are in place. You've got to make sure that your users understand how to interact with it and how to interact with your other tools. And then you've got to just make sure that you're using it the right way, so that you can solve the problems that you actually have set out to solve, and not just solve something that really wasn't your primary goal.
I really want to highlight a couple of things, because you have just dropped pure gold. It's understanding what I want it to do. How do I know it will be successful? We talk about that a lot on this show. How do I know that I'll be successful with this new hire? And actually, I want to align this to hiring strategically. We almost
absolutely
look at it like we're hiring strategically an AI application, because it's a deeper look. It's not just about what are the skill sets, because AI is going to continually learn and grow with us, and it's an iterative process. So what I'm hearing is we almost have to take the same approach we take to hiring strategic hires, and know what it is we want to achieve, and then ask, how do I know this will be successful? What will I see that will let me know that it is achieving the goals that I set out to achieve? So I think that is so incredibly insightful and completely on point. And that's immediately where my brain went. Maybe we're not looking at a tech integration. We're really looking at hiring. Only the person
that's exactly right.
Is an AI application. So it's kind of
because if you think about it, how your employee is using these tools, they're probably getting advice. They're looking at different perspectives. They're looking at, different technologies. They're looking at different solutions that they haven't used traditionally in the past. And, trying to put all that stuff together is not easy. And, that's why I tell people, if you're going to use a large language model to bolster your business, don't just use one. Why would you use one? Use a couple of them. Pick 3 or 4 that are become your foundation. Good companies, good values. They align with what you're trying to do. The technology is exactly what you want it to be. Sometimes these things go off the rails a little bit, and then other times it's good to have different perspectives, because AI like this is just like people. It's going to give you a snapshot in time of what its quote unquote opinion is. Getting a second opinion is not always a bad thing when it comes to AI, because I can tell you can ask 2 different AI models or large language models the exact same question, and you can get very different results. And having a manager pick between those 2, they don't feel very good about that sometimes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so as we think about aligning our tools and platforms, you mentioned, for example, large language model, and you also said aligning with our values. And I want to highlight that because we're seeing that unfold in real time with the taking of a company from nonprofit to for-profit and taking it public, and seeing just mass exodus of leaders, of researchers, of key talents because of that shift in values. So talk to me a little bit about, how do we vet AI vendors and companies for credibility and alignment? What should we be looking for? Because if we align with the wrong horse and they're not aligned with our values, that could be damaging to our brand.
Yes, that's exactly right. Because it takes so long to build those, that brand, that it can go away in a mere matter of minutes. And that's scary for a lot of folks. There used to be an old saying, and when I was a government contractor and supporting that space, that nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM. And you can't say the same thing with AI, because these big companies haven't been around that long. And so how do you look at those basic aspects that you used to be able to hold on to and say, okay, I know that they're doing this all over the world, or I know that they're doing X and they're the brand leader in that. These models change so often. You have one leader on a Friday, somebody else releases a new model, and now they're the leader. And it's changing so rapidly that it's really difficult to be able to do that. And I'm gonna tell people, it's not a technology problem. It is a relationship, and it's a human problem that you have to really understand and overcome. We still align based on human characteristics, not necessarily AI characteristics. And so having a good relationship, going through a pilot with multiple companies, will give you the opportunity to see, if something breaks, how long does it take for them to get it back up? If something is not working like they said was supposed to, well, what kind of support am I going to get from that? And if you get negative answers during your pilot, guess what? Those answers are only going to get worse when you buy a basic license potentially, and you become, number 392 in the queue. So you've got to understand, those human aspects and human elements of support, of technology, of their strategic roadmap, of all of those other things that are out there. That's the only way that you're going to be successful in whatever tool you choose.
I couldn't agree more. And something that I want to ask you, because it's something that gets asked to me all the time. A lot of times companies take me in, pull me in to help them set an AI strategy. And they're like, what vendors for this? And so a lot of that onus is on me to constantly be building relationships, learning what that is. And I just want to highlight, you said pilot with multiple. The reason that Dr. Allen is on this show is because that's exactly how I operate in every aspect of my business. I always pilot a few different, and I go with the best. I call it the horse that wins the race, right? The one that meets all of the needs, takes care of things, is responsive. So that requires you to step back and understand, what do you expect from the companies you're partnering with AI? Because one thing that's assured is, if you go with an application today and they're not updating it regularly, you're going to be behind the times and need to start over from scratch. So we only have a minute left before the break, but can you give me a little bit of what is a warning sign or a red flag, or how do we know that this is somebody who's going to be regularly keeping this updated and up with the times, if you will?
Yeah, the red flag for me has always been what's their strategic roadmap, and if they're not willing to share that with you because they are so protective of it and they don't want their secrets to be out there, that's usually a warning flag for me. Because if somebody's confident in what they're doing and they're sticking to that, that's very easy to find and to provide to you, because that gives you confidence that, one, they have stuck to that, they've hit their milestones, and the future looks good. Otherwise, it's a challenge, and I would steer away from them.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And how can people reach out to you to learn more? Folks, he is a television personality in this AI space. I strongly recommend you reach out to Dr. Allen. Where do you want them to reach out?
Yeah, they can reach out to me on my website, alanbadeau.ai. I love emails from that. I get a lot of emails from the show. That's the easiest way to do that. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. And I am definitely not as engaged as you are, Jen, but I have aspirations to do that. But those are the two easiest ways to get a hold of me.
Fantastic. And always plug into his show. That is an excellent resource for you. We do have to take a brief break, but we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Power CEOs, the truth behind the business. If you're just tuning in, you're going to want to go to nowmedia.tv, click on shows, go to Power CEOs and catch the first part of this show, because it has been pure gold. I am here with Allison Maslin. We are talking about how to actually find the team to scale your business, how to move through the different phases of business so that you could be set for success and to maximize your greatest asset, your business, from a valuation standpoint, from a scale standpoint, from an exit standpoint, and so much more. Allison, I want to dive right in to a topic that really is dear to my heart, and I've experienced, as well as many others I know. Entrepreneurship, founders, it seems like it's a lonely business. It feels like sometimes we're on an island, especially as we have to navigate through these different phases of business. And sometimes it feels like when we talk to people, especially if we're scaling, we find a lot of entrepreneurs, but they're kind of in those earlier phases, and we don't get that support we need. Talk to me about how important it is to have a community of peers who are in it to win it with you, who are growth oriented, going through these tough spots, the teenager phase, and then the growth phases in our business. Like, how do we find that, and how important is it for us that we can sustainably grow?
It is so important. And I mean, I think of my own evolution and growth, and thank goodness for the masterminds I've been in and having that mentorship and so forth, because generally people think we're crazy, and we are crazy. Most people don't get us. And so, like you said, you can feel like you're out on an island all by yourself, but you don't need to be the decision maker, the rainmaker, the everything maker. And, Harvard did a study years ago that showed that when you mastermind, brainstorm with other business owners that are different business models, different industries, you actually grow forward faster. And there's a lot of support for the early stage business owner. But once you get to that higher level, you're past 1 million or 10 million, the business owners that we serve in Pinnacle Global Network, you're kind of the forgotten entrepreneur, right? And it's like, wow, I tried so hard to get here, but then now how do I get here? And so when you surround yourself with other CEOs and mastermind, which is what we really facilitate, and you also have a mentor that's at a high level, that's been there and done it and walked the walk, you feel like, first of all, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. And they've experienced the same things, but actually, wow, they figured out a solution in the beauty industry. I could apply that over here in the marketing industry or in the food industry. And you just start expanding your mind, because we only know what we see in front of us or what we've experienced before. But when we tap into others, it just raises our vibration. We're happier people, but we get the answers faster.
And there's something to be said about people who are kind of playing in the same ring. I mean, when you're a baby, like I call it baby entrepreneurs, like when I'm just started a business and I'm in that little, like my very first business, there's a lot of people who are there. And so there's a lot of ways to kind of collaborate and brainstorm at that level, just like you said. But then you get to a point where when you bring stuff up, it almost feels like they can, so like it's a one-way support, and we get stuck there as entrepreneurs. So it's so vitally important that we have that, because we don't need echo chamber. I call it an echo chamber. Like I come from medicine, right? And I started as an entrepreneur in medicine. So all of the entrepreneurs I associate with were in medicine. Well, guess what? You can't grow very fast when you're doing what everybody else is doing. And there's not a lot of ingenuity and not a lot of space for that creative thought when everybody's like, well, I don't do that, So getting out there and having other industries involved and hearing it, that transformation really can accelerate not just our business, but ourselves personally, because then you have this feeling of, oh, I'm not crazy for having that idea. It just hasn't been done in my industry yet. So it's kind of a validation as well as a support and stretch when you get into that next level room. So talk to me. How did you create this next level room? Like what was the initiating factor when you decided, I'm going to facilitate this because this is a missing link? Like, was there something that you went through? Was there a lesson learned that really facilitated this piece of your journey?
Yeah, so I had just sold my 9th company, and I was at this crossroads, Jen, of what's next. And, as an entrepreneur, you're always wanting to be creating something. It's just part of our DNA. And I kind of put it out there going, okay, show me the signs, world. What am I supposed to do next? And people just started asking me, hey, Allison, how do you do it? How do you build these businesses? And I had grown up in a very entrepreneurial world. My father or my grandfather had a store, women's clothing store in Kansas City. Then it grew. My dad took it to over 50 stores across the United States. So I had grown up with this kind of mindset. And so I realized, wow, others don't really think that way. And so I started out just with this idea I was going to help people, but I realized that's not really scalable. I can only help so many people. So then, fast forward to today, we have over 40 high-level CEO mentors that have scaled big companies, taken companies public, had thousands of employees. And now we can help so many more people. I didn't see it from that place where I started, but I've just had my mind open, and I had a visual of just helping people globally all over the world. Because I know that when you get stuck at that phase 3, that ringleader phase, it can kill a business. But once you understand how to scale and you apply those strategies, it is world changing. And so that has become my mission, Jen, and why I love our community and our mentoring so much at Pinnacle Global Network, because once they step in, these business owners that have been stuck for sometimes decades, all of a sudden, within months of time, now they have this team, they're able to step back, actually be on a vacation and not be checking their email 20 times a day and start living their life, and their business grows so much faster. So that really is what fuels me. And now we have over 500 CEOs that we mentor all over the world and growing.
I really appreciate what you're doing. And I know we've talked about this already, and it's such an important thing to have that community, because when we feel supported, when we have the right coaches, the right mentors, when we have the right team supporting us, and then we have the right community to have those conversations, magic just happens. And I mean, I can attest to this. I'm always in masterminds with high-level people as well, because there's a different level of conversation when you're putting yourselves in rooms with people who've already been there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It kind of makes it feel like, you know what, I didn't know how to do this, but they've done it. So of course I can, right? Of course, I'm going to lean on them and learn from their mistakes. So tell me, speaking of mistakes, Tell me your biggest mistake and what was the biggest lesson you learned?
Yes, well, it's a lot of what we talked about today, but in my first business, I had built a full service advertising and PR firm by the time I was 25. And we had big clients like Ben and Jerry's and Supercuts and Charlotte Russe. And it was growing fast, but all of a sudden it started growing bigger than me. And I was that control freak. I thought that I had to have my eyes on everything, even though I had a small team. And then I just started imploding from the stress, the overwhelm, staying up all night. My daughter was under 2 at the time, and I didn't know whether I was coming or going. And I got to the point where I was absolutely miserable. And my biggest wake up call was I ended up having a car accident from the exhaustion, from the stress of it all. And luckily, obviously, I survived. I'm here. But that was my wake up call to go, wait a minute, this is not working. And it became my mission to figure out how was it that my clients that had thousands of employees, you didn't see the CEO being the orchestra leader standing over anyone. They were out there building powerful relationships and having a team do those things. So that really was the beginning of developing our Scale It method to build that team managed company. And I went on to build 9 more that have not depended on me. And so as tough as it was to go through that period, it actually set me on a course to help others to not have that happen so severely, but move beyond that and really scale their dreams.
Thank you for sharing that. And we all have stories like that. We've all had that story that propelled us forward. And so we do have to unfortunately wrap this, but I'd always give an action step to the audience, and I'm going to give the action step. I'm not going to ask for one today. I am going to recommend to every single person, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are an executive, and you are growing your business, I want you to learn more about what Allison is doing at Pinnacle Global Network, because I cannot understate the importance of having the right community. We talk about it a lot on this show. She has one such community. So Allison, how can people reach out to you? How can people learn more about what you've put together? Because it truly is the difference between staying stuck and getting to the next level.
Yeah, it's so important, Jen. And I mean, I have a mentor myself. I will continue to the end of days because we're so close to it. But they can go to pinnacleglobalnetwork.com. That is our website. You'll find all things. You'll learn about our amazing team. You can follow me on social media, all things Allison Maslin. But we also have an assessment I'm going to go ahead and give as a gift. And that is to determine what phase you're in. Let's assess and see where you're at. You just go to scaleitready.com.
Thank you so much for your expertise today.
Thank you for having me, Jen. This was so fun.
And you, yes, you, I am talking to you. Your action step is go to Scale It, get that assessment, know where you are, reach out, get a coach, get a mentor, find your tribe so that you can get unstuck. But reach out to Allison, take that assessment, know where you are. That's your action step for the day. Do it now, not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. That way, you're moving yourself forward, creating that positive momentum so that we can grow stronger together. Alas, all good things do come to an end, including this show. But the good news is we'll be here same time, same station next week. Until then, win today, win this week, and I'll see you next time.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.